The Philips 807 is the world's first TV publicly advertised to be using the latest OLED.EX panel from LG Display, and indeed, our 65-inch screen features a WBE panel as evidenced by its spectral power distribution showing a narrower blue half-width, as well as clearer separation between the green and red peaks. If we look at a macro shot of the subpixel structure, the pixel aperture ratio is also higher compared to previous years, thanks to the elimination of some metallic sensing lines. OLED.EX panels are capable of higher luminance levels, and as expected, full field brightness on our Philips 65 OLED 807 review unit came in at 170 nits full screen after calibration to D65 white point, which is an upgrade over the 120 nits full field measurement on last year's 806. However, we are slightly surprised at how conservative Philips were at driving the OLED.EX panel on the 807 at smaller window sizes, despite the number of anti-screen burn measures that have been implemented, such as pixel shifting, a screensaver of a Philips logo floating around, as well as TPC auto-dimming, which unfortunately can cause some dark HDR scenes with little to no APL changes to dim down unnecessarily. If you are interested, some of these protective mechanisms can be disabled through the service menu at the risk of voiding your warranty if a Philips technician bothers checking the service log. Anyway, on a 10% window, our review sample measured close to 700 nits at D65 white point, which is no better than what's recorded on 2021's Philips 806. Nevertheless, the 807's generally more relaxed ABL or automatic brightness limiter circuitry did inject more impact to HDR content, on top of OLED's pixel level light control, which lent a refined sheen to the picture. The TV adapted its HDR10 tone curve based on MaxiL metadata, so as to retrieve more bright highlight detail in 4000 nit content. In addition to HDR10 and HLG, dynamic metadata formats such as HDR10+ and Dolby Vision are also supported, although we found even the most accurate Dolby Vision dark picture mode to push midtones and crush some shadow detail, creating an overly contrasty appearance. Just like what we reported on previous Philips OLEDs, the company still hasn't implemented any effective countermeasure on the 807 to mitigate near-black chrominance overshoot, which has affected every WRGB OLED TV since 2018, manifesting as flashing artifacts not only on this moving HDR10 quantization test pattern from Stacy Spears of Spears and Mansell fame, but also in a handful of dark scenes under a certain brightness threshold, sometimes even on high bitrate 4K Blu-rays. While the majority of content we watched were not affected, we strongly suggest that Philips TV look into addressing this issue, since more and more HDR content these days are mastered to very low luminance levels, which can make them very jarring to watch on an OLED without mitigation, especially given the suboptimal 10-bit gradation of the onboard MediaTek HDMI 2.1 chipset. SDR color accuracy was very good after calibration, with an average delta error of just above 1, and only one color exceeding the humanly perceptible inaccuracy threshold of delta error 3 on this challenging color checker SG chart where 140 patches were measured. As a result, general colors including skin tones were faithfully reproduced according to the creative intent. For HDR, DCI-P3 color gamut coverage came in at 99% in UV terms, whereas Rec. 2020 coverage was 77%, which is par for the course for a 2022 WRGB OLED TV. 50Hz motion handling is a key strength on Philips TVs including the OLED 807. Even with motion interpolation enabled, we witnessed no microstutter or frame skipping across a wide variety of 50Hz broadcast material, a testament to the European heritage of Philips motion processing. In terms of motion styles settings, Pure Cinema would apply 5.5 pull-down to present 24 frames per second movies accurately without hallucinogenic judder. If you are sensitive to the mild stutter inherent in 24p films, which is laid bare by OLED's near-instantaneous pixel response time, you can set motion styles to movie to smooth out the stutter without introducing too much soap opera effect or SOE. Given Philips TV's penchant for picture processing, it's unsurprising to find upscaling on the OLED 807 veering towards the aggressive side even with all sharpening disabled, causing slightly more ringing and fizziness along high contrast edges, although we suspect that most casual viewers will like the crisp detail retrieval from sub-4K real-world content, particularly in high-definition resolution. The Philips 807 correctly detected and processed both 3.2 and 2.2 cadences in interlaced film-based material. Perhaps due to its onboard MediaTek HDMI 2.1 chipset without coprocessor, the TV manifested some posterization in the skies of the Martian. We did not find any smooth gradation decontouring filter in the user menu, and an engaging noise reduction, even on the maximum setting, didn't help in smoothing out the posterization either. Bright uniformity on our 65-inch review sample was excellent, with no sign of bending or dirty screen effect on full-field gray slides, although depending on how far you sit from the television, you may see some pink tint along the sides of the screen due to its WBE OLED panel. Just like on every 2022 WRGB OLED television we've tested so far, there were no faint horizontal lines or what we call the Venetian blind effect on bright HDR elements either. Dark uniformity was average for a WRGB OLED panel, with some thin vertical streaks and mild darkening along the sides visible on full-field slides just above black, though they seldom reared their ugly heads in real-world content. Next, gaming. But before I talk about input lag and 4K 120Hz resolution, I would like to thank Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Since the pandemic started, some streaming providers, including Netflix, have throttled the bitrate of certain shows, especially in Europe, resulting in a softer picture with more compression artifacts. This is where a VPN comes in. Surfshark allows you to stream content from another country without needing you to be physically there, so you can watch Netflix at higher bit rates with better picture quality. You can also get more content that's not available in your region, perhaps the US Netflix library, which contains more movie titles. For less than the price of a Big Mac per month, you can use Surfshark on as many devices as you want in your household, all at the same time. There's 24/7 live customer support, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and if you use promo code HDTV test, you will get 85% off, as well as 3 extra months free until the end of the year. So sign up today and give Surfshark a try. I will put the link in the YouTube description below. Thanks again for your support. Okay, for gaming, input lag in game or monitor mode measured 14 milliseconds at 60 frames per second, more than halving to 5.5 milliseconds at 120 frames per second, which is super responsive by TV standards. Out of 4 HDMI ports available on the television, 2 are HDMI 2.1, each supporting the full HDMI 2.1 bandwidth of 48 gigabits per second. Note that one of the HDMI 2.1 inputs is also the dedicated eARC port, so if you use an external soundbar with eARC functionality together with the TV, you'll only be left with one working HDMI 2.1 port to hook up your HDMI 2.1 source devices, which is a common problem faced by most TVs using the MediaTek MT5895 chipset implemented on the OLED 807. Fortunately, unlike the Sony X900H LED LCD which launched some 2 years ago using the chipset, the Philips 807 successfully resolved full 4K 120Hz resolution, although you will have to engage monitor mode to achieve this, which will lock out a number of picture settings. This is not an issue for us, since we would normally disable most of these superfluous settings anyway in the interest of image accuracy. Besides full 4K 120Hz resolution, monitor mode offered 2 further advantages over the regular game mode, namely full 444 chroma as verified using our own custom test pattern, and smoother HDR gradation based on this test pattern from the Display HDR app. VRR including AMD FreeSync and NVIDIA G-Sync continued to work well in monitor mode, although just like what's observed on all OLED televisions, some VRR flicker would be visible in certain VRR games, particularly in more sedate scenes or on static menus. HGiG could still be activated in monitor mode, resulting in a hard clip at the TV's peak brightness with accurate PQ-EOTF tracking, as long as you set light boost to maximum from the default out-of-the-box setting of medium, not to mention disable the eye care ambient light sensor setting. In other words, Philips is now the only OLED brand besides LG Electronics that can deliver full-res 4K 120Hz together with well-implemented HGiG, so very well done to Philips engineers for making this work. With HGiG engaged, max TML and max FF-TML on the Philips 807 ended up between 650 and 700 nits, and the reason we couldn't be 100% sure was due to the presence of some shadows on the Xbox Series X checkerboard pattern. Thankfully, this test pattern anomaly did not translate into any significant detrimental effect in actual gameplay. While on the subject of Xbox Series X, the Philips 807 can only support Dolby Vision gameplay up to 4K 60Hz as a consequence of the MediaTek MT5895 chipset used. ALLM is supported, though not in monitor mode, but it is a small price to pay for all other benefits that monitor mode brings. Just make sure you watch streamed content using the TV's internal apps on the Android TV 11 platform rather than through a game console. New for 2022, users can summon a game bar overlay that sits at the bottom of the screen, providing various video signal information, while also letting you adjust certain settings. Note that the shadow control setting was buggy on the latest firmware at the time we filmed this video in November 2022. Once engaged, the lifted shadow detail would become irreversible even after we switched the setting off, requiring us to restart the game to kill the effect. We would just leave the shadow control setting off without touching it for the most accurate picture. Design-wise, the Philips 807 is a handsome display, perched on a swivel T-bar stand with a shiny chrome finish which some people can find distracting due to the way it reflects light from the screen. The Ambilight integrated bias lighting technology is now four-sided on the OLED 807, although if you are wall mounting your Philips 807, you may be slightly disappointed to discover a small gap along the bottom LEDs to make way for the pedestal stand slotting in. Sound quality was good by television standards, delivering impressive bass and dialogue clarity for day-to-day viewing, though better audio performance obviously could be had from an external soundbar or home theater system. To sum up, the Philips 807 is a solid OLED TV which features accurate colors after calibration, strong video processing and motion handling, very low input lag, full 4K 120Hz resolution with working VRR in monitor mode, impressive sound quality and integrated Ambilight bias lighting solution, and so it earns our recommended award. Near black chrominance overshoot remains unmitigated though, manifesting as flashing artifacts in certain dark scenes. So hopefully Philips TV can address this issue to catch up with other OLED brands in this area. To find out which OLED TVs perform best in suppressing these flashing artifacts, I've done an explanation video you can watch by clicking here.